Welcome to Season 9 of the Let's Talk Data podcast series presented by SAP, where we break down how businesses can go from data overload to data confidence, unlocking AI, smarter decision-making, and real business transformation. If you haven't done so already, please follow or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite channel to stay tuned in.
My name is Niklas, for everyone which don't already know me. I'm product manager for SAP BTP, and I'm happy that I'm hosting this episode today, having Shabana Samsudheen, senior product manager for SAP HANA Cloud with me, and we will make a deep dive into the new knowledge graph engine of HANA Cloud. I'm very happy to start today's interview with my guest, Shabana Samsudheen. And warm welcome to our podcast, Shabana. It's a pleasure having you with me in this episode. Before we start into our exciting topic of knowledge graph engine from HANA Cloud, I would ask you to please first introduce yourself and give us some insights about you and your role at SAP, as it's your first time in this podcast.
Thank you so much, Niklas. I'm really excited as well to be here and talk about the new knowledge graph engine and all the cool things that's happening in SAP HANA Cloud. To my introduction part, so I am a senior product manager at SAP working on the multi-model engines of HANA Cloud. So that's including the spatial, property graph, JSON document store, vector, and now the knowledge graph engine. My main focus here is basically helping customers adopt these technologies very effectively and efficiently on their side so that they can leverage the full power of SAP HANA Cloud for their diverse data needs. And before all this, I started my career as a QA test engineer, which gave me a very good foundation in understanding how systems work under the hood. So over time, I moved into product management, where I now work closely with the customers and stakeholders, helping them, guiding them on how to integrate and get most out of these multi-model capabilities of HANA. That's all on the professional side. And coming to the personal end, I'm a huge nature lover, so I love taking long walks, going on hikes, and just anything and everything about being outdoors. So when I'm not exploring, you'll probably find me reading a good book. So that's all about me in a nutshell.
Yeah, thank you, Shabana, for introducing yourself so you find a good contrast between your professional and personal life. That's great. Today, we're going to talk about the knowledge graph engine of SAP HANA Cloud. But let's start some steps back. If someone has never heard of a knowledge graph before, how would you explain it in simple terms?
That's very much possible. And that's a great question, I would say. Let's take an example to break all this down, okay? So imagine that you are planning a trip, let's say to Paris. And first of all, you would start by looking up on flights. Then you start checking out the hotels and then finding restaurants. Then maybe make a list of all the must-visit places, right? So all of these things like the flights, hotels, landmarks, food spots are all connected in your mind because they all relate to your trip. So that's exactly what a knowledge graph does as well, but in a very structured and a digital way. Instead of storing information in traditional rows and columns like a spreadsheet, a knowledge graph basically connects data like a web, showing relationships between different entities. Again, for an example, in a business setting, it can be about linking customers, their transactions. It could be about linking products and their suppliers. So that's in a way that's much more intuitive. It's like giving your data a brain. It understands not just what things are, but also how they are connected, making it much more easier to find like insights, come up with some design patterns or detect some of the patterns, and also even power the AI applications very much needed in today's modern world. Basically, in a nutshell, a knowledge graph would help businesses organize and connect their data in a much more natural as well as in a very intuitive way. I would just relate it back to how a human would think and process information.
Hey, yeah, thank you. I have been to Paris last year, so maybe a knowledge graph had my planning be easier. But anyways, let's have a look on the difference from a knowledge graph to a regular database or spreadsheet. You already introduced it slightly, but can you please get us more details? So what is really the difference between a knowledge graph and a regular database or a spreadsheet, a default data type?
I would say the biggest difference here is how the data is structured and connected. So let's go back to the same example, like the spreadsheet example. So it's like in a spreadsheet, you have a list of data in rows and columns. If you want to find relationships, you usually must look across multiple sheets or do some complicated lookups. Also, on the traditional databases and like the relational databases, they are a bit more advanced, but they still store data in form of tables with predefined relationships, meaning they work well for structured data, but they eventually could struggle with complex and interconnected information. And now a knowledge graph takes a completely different approach here. So instead of just storing data in a very rigid format, it starts to connect data points in a web-like structure. So you could imagine instead of having separate tables for customers and orders, you have a graph where a customer is directly linked to their orders, which are then linked to products, which are then linked to suppliers. So this makes it incredibly easy to navigate relationships and also come across or uncover some of the hidden connections here, and basically, again, powering the AI insights that's needed. So if a traditional database is like file cabinet where everything is stored in separate folders, a knowledge graph is more like a mind map, like basically showing how everything is connected in real time. It will eventually make the search and analysis much more intuitive and easier.
Let's get into the examples. You already had one example with the Paris trip, but can you give us some more real world examples of how knowledge graphs are used?
Of course. So knowledge graphs, as we speak, are already powering so many things that we use on a daily basis, sometimes even without us realizing it. So let me take some real world examples, like few of them. First and foremost, Google search. What we usually do, we eventually think about going and searching for a celebrity or a landmark or a movie, all these sort of things that we want to Google search, right? So when you search about these, you get a very neat summary of the search item with every related facts and images and links, right? That's exactly knowledge graph at work there. Instead of just showing the web pages, it's kind of already connecting the related information for you so that you get the answers very instantaneously, but also it's much easier for you to understand how everything is relating to your search object. Another interesting example would be the fraud detection in banks, right? So banks use knowledge graphs to detect unusual financial patterns. Let's say someone is suddenly starting to make multiple large transactions or transfers to a high risk account. Then a graph can help you map out those suspicious connections and also help you in flagging potential fraud before it eventually happens. And also, another very relatable example I could say is the Netflix and Spotify recommendations. When you have your Netflix account, it basically suggests shows based on what you have watched previously, or Spotify, which creates a custom playlist for you. So they are using knowledge graphs. It is linking the users and their preferences and their content in a much smarter way to make the recommendations feel even more personal. And I will end it with business use case, let's say supply chain and logistics. So businesses are using knowledge graphs to track suppliers, their shipments and inventories, all of this. So if one supplier, say for example, has a delay, the system can then quickly find alternatives based on the existing relationships. And also it is definitely helping the company stay ahead of disruptions in a much more intuitive way again.
Yeah, thank you for sharing these examples. And I'm very happy that knowledge graphs are protecting my banking. But in general, why should we care about knowledge graphs? Or why do they matter? I mean, we have these examples now, but yeah, let's get more into detail.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Why should we care about knowledge graph? The short answer here would be because they would help us make sense of complex information in a way that traditional databases simply can't. So let's be real. In today's world, data is really exploding, right? Every company, every industry is drowning with data. But with raw data alone, it doesn't make much sense unless we can understand how much things are connected. That is where I believe this knowledge graphs could come into picture. So some bullet points on why knowledge graphs really matter. They basically help you in turning your data into insights. Like I said, instead of just storing your information, a knowledge graph is helping you discover some hidden patterns and relationships and trends. It could be detecting fraud or improving search or even predicting supply chain risks. They're also making the AI and machine learning smarter. AI models, they need context to make better predictions. And knowledge graphs provide that by linking the data points in a way that mimics human thinking. So this is why they are becoming essential for AI-driven applications, like, for example, chatbots or recommendation systems and even intelligence systems. Most importantly, they break down the data silos, I would say, because businesses often have data that is scattered across multiple systems. Like it could be customer databases, financial records, or supply chain logs. So the knowledge graph could help in connecting the dot between all of these sources, making it much easier and also giving you a very full picture of your business scenarios. Last but not the least, they save time and they reduce complexity. So let's say you are a customer service or you are working in the customer service field and you need to understand a customer's history, what they have bought in the past, what are their past support tickets or their feedback on your products and so on. Instead of just searching across multiple systems, a knowledge graph could help you in connecting all the dots and also giving you a very instant view of everything that's related to the customers, basically tying it back to the Google search example that I gave in the beginning.
Making AI smarter, breaking down data silos, reducing complexity. Okay, yeah, I'm with you. We should care about knowledge graphs. And the good thing is that there's a brand new knowledge graph engine in SAP HANA Cloud now. So what does it mean for the customers? What are the benefits for customers of HANA Cloud?
There comes again the interesting part. Very great question. Thanks, Niklas, for that. So the addition of knowledge graphs to SAP HANA Cloud is a big deal because it is going to give customers a completely new way to connect and analyze their data. Like in the sense, I have already mentioned it before, rather than just storing it, you will have an intuitive way to connect your data and also uncover the insights alongside the relational data that you're going to store on HANA Cloud. Businesses today they don't deal just with the isolated data points, right? So they need an understanding and a relationship between these data. So that is what knowledge graph and the knowledge graph engine is going to enable at the end of the day. For customers, this means that they can now move beyond the traditional database queries and start discovering these hidden connections within their data. Instead of running complex joins across multiple tables, they can instantly see relationships, whether that's between, again, customers, suppliers, financial transactions, or even products. So this is incredibly valuable in the areas like fraud detection, customer analytics, and also just basically understanding relationships in real time. It definitely does make a lot of difference for them. Another key benefit, I would say, is how this basically is going to improve the AI-driven applications. So many businesses nowadays are slowly starting to rely on AI and machine learning for automation and making predictions and recommendations, right? Knowledge graph would strengthen these capabilities by providing much deeper context and also helping the AIs make some better decisions with this richer and connected data that the customers can now store. And finally, the best part, it all happens in SAP HANA Cloud. So businesses need not manage separate tools or move around their data between different systems. That means they can just now store, process, and analyze these highly connected knowledge graph data very much efficiently, all within a single database that's like in the same environment.
Yeah, Thanks for sharing. And I mean, we already had the term in your introduction, the multi-model engine or the multi-model data processing from SAP HANA Cloud. So the Knowledge Graph engine is one part of it. For everyone which never heard about it in the past, can you summarize what the multi-model data processing means, or what's in the box for the customers?
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm an evangelist for multimodal processing in HANA Cloud. Coming to explaining it, multimodal data processing might just sound very technical, but it's really about making life and the processes easier for businesses that are dealing with different types of data. So traditionally, companies store data in different databases depending on the type. That is structured data in relational databases. They could be storing documents in NoSQL stores or graph data in separate graph databases. And then obviously the spatial data and geographic information systems and so on. So there is a problem here, right? So these systems don't always talk to each other easily. This could be leading to data silos, a lot of extra effort to combine insights across multiple systems that are involved here. But with the HANA Cloud's multimodal processing, everything is handled in a single and unified database, as I mentioned before. So that means businesses can store and analyze relational, document kind of data or graph data, spatial, and even time series data, all of them in one place. So there's no need to move data between different systems or even worry about performances, the trade-offs that are involved here. It is all going to work together very seamlessly for the customers. I would like to explain it better with an example. Let's imagine like we have a retail company that's managing its supply chain. So they might be storing transaction records in relational tables. They need to track customer interactions that could be stored as JSON documents. And they could be using graph models to understand the relationships between the suppliers. And they could be relying on spatial data to understand and optimize the delivery routes. So instead of juggling between multiple databases here, they could rely on SAP HANA Cloud, which is allowing them to query and analyze all of these data types together in a much faster way, which in the sense is also providing them better decision-making capabilities. Also, in short, multimodal processing is about providing a lot of flexibility and efficiency for our customers. So it is eliminating the complexity for them, in the sense reducing the headache of doing a lot of integrations and ETL kind of transfers between multiple systems. And it is also making it much easier for them to extract some meaningful insights out of their data, no matter how it is structured. It could be structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. And now with the Knowledge Graph engine as part of HANA Cloud, businesses can definitely take their data analysis one step further. Like we have been talking since the beginning, just understanding the relationships and connections in a whole new different way.
Thanks, Shabana, for summarizing and explaining what multimodal data processing means once again for our listeners. And I believe this was a very good explanation and also a very good presentation of the business value of SAP HANA Cloud for everyone which isn't a customer so far, right? So reducing the complexity and bringing all the different data types together in one place sounds great. How do I create knowledge graphs in general and how in SAP HANA Cloud?
Very, very interesting question. And also, I believe this will be a question that many of our customers will have on their mind. So I'm happy to just step in there and answer that. Like in general, creating knowledge graph is basically involving, like you have to define the entities, for example, the customers, the products and transactions involved, and then the relationships between them, right? So basically forming a structured and connected web of data. The goal here is to move beyond traditional tables and instead of that, start to capture how different pieces of information are linked. It's not going to be very traditional, like we have been discussing since the beginning. And in SAP HANA Cloud, there is no built-in way to automatically generate your knowledge graph at this point. Instead, customers are expected to model and build their own knowledge graphs based on their specific data and business needs. However, HANA Cloud is going to provide the knowledge graph processing capabilities that is needed to, like, you can have your own knowledge graph that's created on your side. You can efficiently store it, query it, and also analyze the knowledge graphs alongside the other relational or unstructured kind of data that could be sitting on HANA Cloud. But in the sense, knowledge graphs is, again, providing you a very structured way of doing it. And for those who are looking for easier ways to generate knowledge graphs, I would like to give some tips here. So they could be looking at some emerging tools that basically help in automating the process of creation of these knowledge graphs. Like, for example, one of the things that I've been seeing very frequently at this point is the LLM-based approaches, like, for example, the LangChain's graph transformer, where a large language model can process the unstructured text, and it helps in extracting the structured entities and relationships out of this. So this is basically very useful if you have a lot of textual data, like you could be dealing with customer reviews or documents or even research papers. And then you want to automatically build a knowledge graph out of it. And then this might be a way for you. And there are also multiple other approaches in building pre-existing ontologies, or like taking advantage of what is already existing, or some schema-based knowledge extraction tools that could help you structure your data into a graph format, which can then be imported into HANA Cloud for querying and analysis as part of the knowledge graph engine. So just summarizing all that back, HANA Cloud does not at the moment provide an automated way to generate the knowledge graph, but it is providing a high performance engine that's needed to manage and analyze them efficiently.
Thanks for explaining how to create knowledge graphs. So, as we now know how to create and store them inside of HANA Cloud, does knowledge graphs within SAP HANA Cloud have an impact on the day-to-day operations of the database?
Mm-hmm. Again, a very great question. So one of the biggest advantages of using the knowledge graph engine within HANA Cloud is how easy it is going to be for you to integrate your data into the database, meaning you don't have to worry about managing separate systems or dealing with any performance bottlenecks as a result of juggling with multiple systems, right? Because HANA Cloud is designed for multimodal processing, so it is efficiently handling the knowledge graph data also alongside your relational, document, and spatial data in a native way. In fact, in many cases, using a knowledge graph can enhance the operations because it's going to allow the businesses to run much more faster and intuitively, and also run some intuitive queries without having to do some complex joins between multiple tables. For example, like instead of executing multiple nested SQL queries to trace relationships in a traditional relational database, a graph query can retrieve those connections in just a couple of steps, or even I would say just in a single step, which is going to significantly improve the efficiency. And since it's all running in HANA in-memory database, the businesses tend to get the high performant and real-time insights, providing the database with very minimal operational overhead on their side.
Okay, so as in summary, that means no additional day-to-day impact on the operations, right?
Yeah, absolutely no.
Nice. Thanks for explaining. So then a very important question. Does the knowledge graph engine of SAP HANA Cloud has an additional price tag for the customers?
Yeah, this is also going to be the question on a lot of customers' mind. And here I have a good news. There is no extra cost to use the knowledge graph capabilities in SAP HANA Cloud. So it's going to be included as part of the overall HANA Cloud offering. So if you're already using SAP HANA Cloud, you can start leveraging knowledge graphs right away without having to deal with any additional licensing fees. And of course, like any other data features, the cost will also depend on how much of data you're processing and storing, as well as also on the compute resources that you're going to be using. So since HANA Cloud is operating on consumption-based pricing model, the customers can pay for the actual storage and the processing and the queries that they are running on their side. So this is just like they would for any other workload in HANA Cloud. It's not going to be any different here. So yeah, just in short, no extra license needed, no hidden fees, just a powerful new capability that the customers can start using immediately to basically unlock some deeper insights from their data. So I believe that sounds like a pretty good deal, right, Nicholas?
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good deal and good news for our existing SAP HANA Cloud customers. All right, so let's get to the next question then. How do the knowledge graphs enhance AI models, particularly in search engines, recommendation systems, large language models? And can knowledge graph of SAP HANA Cloud be used in the same way?
That's a fantastic question because I have been saying since the beginning, knowledge graphs and AI are a perfect match. So, coming to the AI models, especially in search engines like recommendation systems, large language models, they work the best when they have context. And that's exactly what the knowledge graph is going to provide. So, the knowledge graphs is going to structure data in a way that would help AI understand not just isolated facts, but also help them understand how things are related. Let's take the search engines like Google as an example. When you search for something like Leonardo da Vinci, you don't just get a list of web pages, right? You get an info box showing his works, his lifetime, his timeline of doing things, and all the related figures to his personal life. So that's powered by Knowledge Graph, which is enhancing the AI model's understanding of entities and relationships for the search object. And then there is large language models like the ChatGPT. It's pretty famous nowadays. So while LLMs are great at generating text, they can sometimes produce misleading or hallucinating responses. When combined with knowledge graphs, the AI is able to get a verified and structured source of truth, which is going to improve their accuracy, especially for enterprise AI applications in the area of finance, healthcare, or legal industries. Very much important. And can HANA Cloud's knowledge graph engine be used in the same way? Absolutely. Since it's integrated into the HANA Cloud ecosystem, businesses can use it to enhance their AI models, basically to improve their search capabilities, to build smarter recommendation systems, and even power enterprise chatbots with more reliable information. For example, again, stepping back to the retailer shoes here, if a retailer is using HANA Cloud, he could now connect customer purchase history, product categories, and user behaviors to build an AI driven recommendation engine that would understand the relationship rather than just relying on basic plain filtering kind of operations. So, in short, yes, HANA Cloud's knowledge graph engine can be used exactly in these ways, like making the systems much more faster, more accurate, and providing them with more and more context so that they do not hallucinate at all.
That sounds great. So thanks for introducing and explaining all that. When we look a little bit in the future, I know it's hard, but when we look into the future, so what do you see how knowledge graphs are evolving and what exciting developments should we look out for?
That's such an exciting question looking ahead in the future because knowledge graphs are evolving rapidly and we are only scratching the surface here of what they can do. We are just beginning, I would say. Right now, knowledge graphs are already helping to transform search, AI, recommendation systems, and fraud detection systems. But in future, I see them becoming even more tightly integrated with the real-time AI or the automation systems and autonomous decision-making systems. One major trend that I foresee is the fusion of knowledge graphs with the large language models, which is already starting to happen, I would say. So the LLMs are really great at generating text, right? Like I mentioned, they sometimes do struggle with factual accuracy. But when they're paired with knowledge graphs, AIs can pull off a lot of things from a structured, verified knowledge base, and then they can even make responses more precise and reliable. So, this will be huge for applications like enterprise AI chatbots, virtual assistants, and even intelligent decision making systems. And another exciting development that I foresee is graph based AI reasoning. Like instead of just analyzing historical data, the future AI models will use knowledge graphs to predict the outcomes and suggest next best actions, whether in finance, healthcare, or supply chain management, again, just as an example. So you can imagine an AI system that is not only detecting the fraud, but also is predicting which suppliers might be at risk of disruption because of all this, based on the connected data that you will have in hand. And then there is real-time streaming knowledge graphs. So today, many graphs are built from static data, right? But we are going to be more dynamic in the future, like in the sense real-time graphs that needs continuous updates because the new data is going to flow in all the time. So this will definitely power the real-time recommendation systems, fraud detection as well, and also adaptive AI systems to help them make the decisions on the fly. And just tying it back to SAP HANA Cloud, I think the future is incredibly exciting because with the Knowledge Graph Engine now being the part of the multi-model family, businesses can definitely combine their structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data and also graph data in ways that were not possible before. So as AI adoption is growing, I see Knowledge Graph Engine in HANA Cloud becoming a key tool for powering these smarter applications that the industries are planning to build. Just to sum it up, the knowledge graphs are not just about connecting data anymore. They are really becoming the foundation for next generation of AI-driven intelligence.
All right. Thank you for looking into the future for us. The key sense of today's episode is, on the one hand side, to learn what a knowledge graph is, but on the other hand side, of course, the great news that you can now make use of knowledge graphs inside of SAP HANA Cloud. So if someone is interested in learning more about knowledge graphs within SAP HANA Cloud, what are some first good steps, tools, or resources our listeners could check out?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are interested in exploring the Knowledge Graph Engine in HANA Cloud, there are plenty of resources to help you get started. First and foremost, I would recommend checking out the SAP Help Portal page and the SAP HANA Cloud documentation page. They have detailed guides on setting up and using the Knowledge Graph Engine. And if you prefer a hands-on approach, I believe the SAP HANA Cloud Basic Trial is a great way to experiment with the knowledge graph queries and see how they will eventually work in real-time scenarios. And for more interactive learning, SAP is going to offer tutorials on SAP Discovery Center and developer-focused contents on SAP community where you can maybe find blogs, discussions, and even some code samples. And if you want to do some deep dives, keep an eye out for SAP TechEd sessions, webinars, and other online courses because they definitely cover advanced use cases and best practices. So whether you prefer reading or you want to get some hands-on learning or some community engagement, there's always something for everyone to get started.
Exactly. So thanks for sharing, and a clear call to action for every of our listeners to make yourself familiar with the new Knowledge Graph Engine of HANA Cloud. Of course, some of the resources are also linked in the show notes. And with that, we made the official part already. So thank you, Shabana, for having this conversation with me and sharing all details about knowledge graphs and HANA Cloud. So
thanks so much, Niklas. I think this was so much fun. I had absolute pleasure talking everything about knowledge graphs and the Knowledge Graph Engine in HANA Cloud. And I believe this was a great conversation.
Big thanks to you, Shabana Samsudheen, for joining me in the podcast today. I really appreciate that you're taking the time to talk with me. To our listeners, check out all the links in the show notes, and of course, make sure to follow Shabana on LinkedIn. In case of any questions, or if you want to share some feedback, drop us an email at platformtalks@sap.com, or just send us a message on social media. If you enjoy our podcast, of course, make sure to spread the word and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss one of the next episodes in the future. And with that, my name is Niklas, and I'm happy that I were your host for today's episode, recording from the SAP headquarters in the world of Germany, and talking to you in one of the next episodes. Until then, cheers and bye-bye.